Welcome back to Bee's Travelogue episode 22. My second day in Busan, I woke up fairly early and walked around Chinatown. I found a lot of intricate statues and several Chinatown gates. However, there weren't that many Chinese restaurants, more Russian actually. I left Chinatown through this gate right across from Busan train station and went to one of the subway stops. It took about 45 minutes to get to Haeundae Beach. Haeundae had a lot of restaurants and many statues like this. It was very touristy, although it was fairly empty in February and on the main day of Solal. This side street with many food stalls was fairly crowded and a lot of places were open. I got in line at this hotdog place, which smelled really great. Two women were busy making the dough, so they used this self-serve cash register. I walked while eating my very hot hotdog and finally arrived at the beach. I was amazed at how tall the buildings were here. The sand here was absolutely beautiful. There was no garbage, no rocks, no broken seashells or algae, just very fine sand. These seagulls kept standing in the waves and just waiting. I found the dog footprints and seashells. It was absolutely gorgeous. I had entered the beach around the middle section and walked to my left, so further northeast. When I reached this quay, I looked back, took pictures, and turned around to walk back to the other end of the beach. It was windy and cool, but not freezing. I had a very thick winter coat from the previous teacher and felt fairly comfortable walking around. Quite a few families had come to the beach to walk along the water and enjoy the beautiful sunshine. Watching the waves and the seagulls was very relaxing, and the buildings alongside the beach were all beautiful to look at. I didn't realize it when I was walking there in February, but this was the location for the aquarium where I went in October. I saw families flying kites. There was a woman picking up garbage, and lots of people were exercising along the water. Especially older Korean people seem to exercise a lot. Whenever I climbed a hill and was completely exhausted, I was always surprised to find exercise equipment on top and older Koreans working out. When I came to the southern end of the beach, it became rocky. There were a lot of these snails and families working together to collect items. The little boy was dressed for Solal. When the beach ended and the shore became rocky, the Koreans had built pathways for people to walk on. There were bridges and stairs and lots of trails for people to make their way to what was called the APEC House. You can see the black rocks here and the beach in the distance. The water was a very beautiful deep blue. Near this lighthouse, there was actually a rock with a Chinese symbol on it that had been carved several hundred years ago. Here's the APEC House, and in the distance, the bridge that's right in front of Gwangalli Beach. APEC stands for Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation, and the house was built for the meeting in 2005. Visitors could walk through the building and see where world leaders had sat 20 years ago. Once I left the APEC House, I headed back toward the subway station. On the way, I was surprised by a swarm of seagulls. Taking the subway in Korea means climbing a lot of stairs. They always have some encouraging messages though. Once near Gwangalli, I had Mexican lunch. And then it was just a couple of blocks further down to reach the beach. Gwangalli Beach turned out to be much smaller than Haeundae Beach, but also beautiful. The bridge certainly added a special charm. The sand looked fine early on, but closer to the water there were a lot of rocks and broken seashell and algae. I was looking down to see if I could find anything really interesting, but this was probably the most interesting one. Like in Haeundae, there were seagulls and also pigeons, statues along the road. People were sitting under these umbrellas. To celebrate the New Year, there was this blue dragon and some Korean writing on the beach. I couldn't really make out what it said. I believe the beginning word is annyeong, but I'm not sure about the second one. I suddenly came across these drones laid out, and I remembered I had read something about a drone show. Online research showed that the show was going to take place that evening, so I was determined to stay and wait for it. I needed to kill some time before the drone show, so a look at the map showed me a temple nearby. First I saw these beautiful cabbages lit up by the sunlight, and then I walked to what turned out to be the Busan fish market, or one of the Busan fish markets near Gwangalli Beach, but because of Solal, it was completely empty. I found the temple entrance and followed a very steep road up the hill. A woman next to me was walking backwards. This temple had a lot of statues, and around each of the statues, people had placed little Buddha images, little figurines. It was very cute. I kept trying to get a good view of the city below me, but from the temple itself, it was hard to see anything. The map showed that there was supposed to be a way up to the top of the mountain, but I couldn't find it. I kept walking around the temple, looked at the different buildings, and then walked out again to see if I could find the entrance to the walkway up the hill. This temple was really beautiful and apparently also fairly old. I found this large statue above the temple, but even from this platform, I wasn't able to see the city because of too many trees around. So I went back down, saw my first cherry blossoms of spring, and then finally discovered the way up the hill. Besides this giant outdoor gym on top of the hill, I also found this Chinese marker that marked this as a historic overlook. Here is a view of Suyong River. The views west, northwest, and southwest were especially spectacular. The sun was getting lower in the sky, so I had a beautiful orange glow to all the photos. Even though I had been sick right up to this trip, I wasn't feeling too poorly. I managed quite well getting up the hill and doing all the exercise and walking around. I wasn't really straining myself. It felt quite natural and I didn't feel like I was overdoing anything. You can see from these photos how densely packed Busan is. The entire area between the mountains is covered with buildings and people. There was a lot to explore in all directions. I was getting worried that it would take me too long to get down the hill and that I might miss the drone show. By the time I got to the drones, it was still light out, but people started to gather on the beach and wait for nightfall. The bridge was beautiful and changing colors. The buildings were all lit up. There were security guards everywhere, making sure that no major crowds would form in narrow spaces. We first saw a little bit of fireworks underneath the bridge, and then suddenly the drones started to appear. The shapes were all moving and forming, and people were having a fun time watching the different designs. You can see the colors of the bridge changing underneath the formations in the sky. When the bag disappeared, only the coin remained, and then the dragon formed around it. As the show was ending, it was time for me to get back home. I walked with the crowd to the metro and returned to my Airbnb to get ready for my tour the next day. Please join me for episode 23. Thank you for watching.